Good morning and welcome to Red Sea Roundup. Today is Tuesday, January 12th. I'm your host, Gene Wilhelm, and today is the feast of St. Alred of Rivaux, a Cistercian abbot who, oddly enough, is the patron saint of those suffering from kidney stones and arthritis, neither of which I have right now.
More information than we needed, Gene. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you? We're going to be talking to Mary Kelly a little later in the show. Mary Kelly has a Ph.D. in economics and political science, a graduate of the Naval Academy, and she's going to be talking to us about how to organize your life. And Dennis and I were talking about this a little bit just a few minutes ago, and it's not like you think to-do lists and all that sort of thing. It's to get ready for what happens when we die and what mess we leave after us.
So you've brought up three different topics I don't like to talk about: arthritis, kidney stones, and what happens when we die. So happy day, everyone.
Happy day. Happy Tuesday.
No, it's funny because St. who? Alred?
Alred of Rivaux.
St. Alred of Rivaux, someone I have never heard of. And I am just, he's a patron saint of someone with kidney stones or arthritis.
Yes, he suffered from both the last several years of his life.
There's a significant amount of suffering that would have to go on to make yourself the patron saint of that.
Yes, it would be. Dennis, how's your week been?
Well, it's compared to what St. Alred's had. I had a pretty darn good weekend.
Yes.
Pretty relaxing. Kids are starting to fly the nest again. Anthony went back off to seminary and in his retreat. Poor guy in Arkansas right now. I guess it's not too bad if he's at Subiaco, I think, retreat center, and then he's going to be traveling all over the country in the next couple of weeks here for, various things and ordinations and March for Life and all that kind of stuff. But we're doing great here and, can't complain.
I saw him a couple of times when he was here. Didn't get a chance to talk with him. Looks like either he's agreeing with the seminary or the seminary is agreeing with him.
I think it's both. And our daughter Amber is doing great in college. Our other kids are miserably started school already. And, that's how the grind has begun again, and things are good. Things are going great for the station as well.
Our life is back to normal. On January 2nd and 3rd, we had our family Christmas in Dallas, and it was so good to see all of the children together. Wonderful. And the grandchildren together. We had a lot of fun.
That's great. Yeah, things are, as I mentioned, things are growing for the station, and we will make a big grand announcement tomorrow of who that is and do a better introduction, but we will start our new employee for Red Sea Catholic Radio, our general manager, tomorrow morning. So we're very excited about the growth that's to come and things that are taking shape for a purchase of a station in Central Texas, maybe one in East Texas. And so just buckle up, people. It's coming. We're expanding, and I'm not talking about my waistline, which is another thing I don't like to talk about.
Yes.
Too.
Well, for those of you who do not have arthritis in your knees, it's a good opportunity to get on your knees and to pray for Red Sea Radio.
Hey, good idea.
There's a lot going on in the community right now. And incidentally, today's show is pre-recorded because of a scheduling conflict that our guest had that we needed to record it ahead of time. But let's talk a little bit about what's going on. And one of my favorite topics that I talk about almost every time I'm on here is the ethics and integrity in ministry training, which is a requirement of the diocese to protect the young, the elderly, and the vulnerable, so that everybody who has a volunteer position in any of the functions that are under the diocese needs to take this. And there are two coming up that you can do. There's the refresher that needs to be done every 3 years. And both of these are going to be at St. Joseph's Catholic Church. The refresher is on Thursday, January 7th from 6 to 7:15 p.m. in the PAC. The basic course is, if you've not taken this before, is also at St. Joseph in the PAC. And it will be on Saturday, July. Boy, I'm ahead of myself. I want that warm weather again, don't I? Saturday, January 9th from 9 a.m. to noon. And to register for this, you can go to www.austindiocese.org. Then go to the quick links, then to the EIM workshops. It's very important that you get there on time because there's a lot of material to be covered. Probably the next thing that's coming up, and I've heard spots for this on KEDC, is the Married Couples Night that will be here at St. Mary's Catholic Center on Friday, January 15th. potluck dinner, and the speakers are somebody that I think you'll really enjoy.
Yeah, they're really good. Christopher and Kimberly Cutsmode, I was talking to them last night, and as is good for all marriages, they're still actually planning and working through their what they're going to talk about. So, but it is a topic that they know about, but it's just they've got to finish working out their plans for the presentation. But it's living a 3D marriage, and don't ask me exactly what the 3Ds are because I came late to that conversation after Mass last night.
Yes, but those of you that don't know Christopher, there are going to be some funny moments during that presentation, I can tell you, because he does have a good sense of humor. Christopher
and Kimberly are great. We've known them since college. And so, yeah, if you want to get away with your wife and learn some great things, a husband or wife, that is, come there and learn from some wonderful people about the sacrament of marriage.
If you're going to be becoming, you're asked to RSVP to Carrie Schumann, and the email address for that is met@aggiecatholic.org. That's MET for Marriage Enrichment Training, I guess. MET@aggiecatholic.org. Babysitting is available, and I believe they usually ask for a $5 donation per family.
Yeah, and it's the Marriage Enrichment Team.
Marriage Enrichment Team. Good.
There you go.
I'm glad you got me straightened out.
Well, sort of.
Well, I'm beyond straightening, I think. There's no body shop that will take me anymore.
At least we know we don't have kidney stones yet.
No, thank God. I have a son that treats those.
No, let's go on.
Let's go on. Okay.
Next day. Come on.
The next thing is, this is this is interesting. For those of you that have teens, the Diocesan Catholic Youth Conference will take place at the Waco Convention Center on January 29th through 30th. There are various keynote speakers. There'll be a lot of fun and entertainment woven together with this year's theme, Restless. And those of you who have teens probably know what the word restless means. So registration is open, and participants may register or find out more information through their parish youth ministry. So
DCYC is coming up.
DCYC.
Yep.
And I've heard these are a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I'm a little old to go.
I know Anthony will be there. I don't think I'm going to be able to make it this year, but I've heard they're great, really awesome events.
And next thing is something that some of you may be aware of and may not. It's the 6th Annual Day of Reflection, and this is sponsored by Regnum Christi, and it will be on Saturday, January 30th. So if you're not going to the DCYC, then you can. And you're a woman, you can go to this, and it'll be January 30th from 9 to 3:30 in the PAC at St. Joseph. Let's see, they'd be talk about priest-led meditations, mass, confession, and something from someone who is a consecrated virgin as a part of Regnum Christi. There is a $25 per person charge, but that includes a light breakfast and lunch. You can email your registrations to our own KEDC Red Sea Susan Lovelet at 4908 Park Hampton Drive, Bryan, Texas 77802. That's Susan Lovelet, 4908 Park Hampton Drive, Bryan, Texas 77802. You make your checks payable to RC Activities BCS. If you got questions, contact Ann at 979-777-3591, 979-777-3591. This is, again, something that I understand is very good and very enjoyable. It's an opportunity to learn some things you haven't heard before.
Indeed.
Okay, we have also the Spring Fling at St. Joseph Catholic School will be Saturday, February 6th at the Brazos County Expo Complex. The doors open at 6 o'clock. There's dinner, silent, and live auctions. Something called Heads or Tails. I have no idea what
that's where everybody flips, and if you're a winner, you stay in the winner's bracket, and you just keep battling it out till there's one or two people or a choice of, who's the last person standing for probably a pretty big prize, usually like a big screen TV or something like that. So,
and there's going to be dancing to the music of Texas Unlimited Band. This is to help St. Joseph's Catholic School. You can reserve your table now by going to www.stjosephschoolbcs.org or call Gentry Woodard at 979-822-6461.
Yep. Extension 30 from what I remember. But yeah, we've got a spot running on that one. And yeah, that is a fun event. I did make it to that event once in the past and really had a great time.
Next thing is something that will be, that I understand is something that's really good for your stomach, and that's St. Thomas Aquinas Knights of Columbus are going to have their 2016 Super Bowl chili fundraiser.
Well, they're going to call it that, but we can't say that on the air. So
we can't. What can we say?
We could say it's a super chili. We could say super chili. It's a super chili bowl, but you know how the FCC goes when there's a trademark around that one particular term.
I am sorry. I didn't realize that.
They can advertise it that way, but we can't.
We can't.
Yeah, it's a great bowl of chili.
It's a great thing to eat while you're watching the Super Bowl.
Yeah, let's say that.
And they're going to have it on, let's see what the date is, whatever the date of the Super Bowl is, which is Sunday, February 7th.
February 7th.
They will be selling the chili in quart containers for $12 a quart on a to-go basis only. Chili will be ready after the 8:30 a.m. and 11 a.m. masses. There will be a convenient drive-through for fast, easy pickup from 9:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m., and it's a good way to support the Knights of Columbus and all of the good work that they do.
Yeah, we've typically just kind of held our money out the window, and they it's grab and go. It's fast.
Okay.
So, yeah, that is a great bowl of chili. So support the Knights.
Okay, another thing for young men that's coming up is on Texas Conquest, which is another Regnum Christi-sponsored group. Mm-hmm. On February 19th to the 21st, we'll have a weekend to build friendship and with Christ and with each other, leadership training and team competitions. Includes a team-building challenge course, dodgeball, capture the flag, blitz, football, talks, the sacraments, and more. Texas Conquest is for 5th through 8th grade boys. 9th grade and up may inquire about leader positions. I guess that's camp counselor type thing. Visit Texas Conquest online at texasconquest.com/retreat-tx-friendstat for more information. That event will take place at Friendstat. Don't have any boys that age anymore.
We went on some of their events in the past, and it was a lot of fun. The kids had a lot of activity, and they get to have some great spirituality combined and shared with those activities, as well as with lots of other boys their age. So it was a great thing.
Another thing that's going on is the St. Vincent de Paul Society of Dallas, pardon me. I talked to somebody from Dallas recently, from Bryan, is having elections for officers on the board of directors. We've had both George Caudle and Pat Schoeneman on the program several times. Mm-hmm. And if you want to be a part of this, I think these board members go through the various parishes. So call your parish office and see who you need to talk to about being on the board. The St. Vincent de Paul Society does a lot of good work here in Bryan, College Station. And they're in an exciting time where they're working to grow and get even bigger and be able to do more for people.
Great organization. That is, yeah, because of the fruits of what they're doing, the Holy Spirit is calling them to grow. So this is a great time if you want to be involved in that growth and help a wonderful organization and have some time to be on the board. I think that maybe the Holy Spirit is calling you through Gene and myself today.
Another thing that's going to be happening at St. Thomas Aquinas, and I'm sure it's in other parishes, but I didn't see it in the bulletins, World Marriage Day celebration, Mardi Gras style, will be Saturday, February 6, 2016. There'll be a celebratory mass at 5:30 p.m. Dinner and festivities follow. Online registration deadline is February 1st. Limited space is available. Last year, the event sold out, so don't be left out. And if you'd like to receive a certificate of recognition of significant sacramental wedding anniversary, 5, 10, 15, or 45, as in our case, please submit a copy of your sacramental marriage certificate to the church office by February 1st. I haven't got a clue where our marriage certificate is.
Do you know when your anniversary day is?
I certainly do.
Good boy. And that's coming soon?
Be next month.
You hesitated too bad.
No, I know what it is.
Congratulations. Hey, are you going to say something about the
No,
men's
I'll let
conference?
you talk about that.
Okay, we have the Iron Sharpens Iron. The Central Texas Fellowship of Catholic Men is holding their 4th annual Catholic Men's Conference. And that's going to be on Saturday, February 20th in Austin at San Jose Catholic Church. Feel free to give the station here a call if you'd like. You can call me on my cell, 979-255-2633, if you want more information. But you could also go to centexcatholic.com. That's CENTEXCATHOLIC.com. And it's going to be a really good event this year. It's going to be Tim Staples and Trent Horn. Both are very, very popular speakers on the Catholic Answers Live circuit. And my goodness, they are both wonderful speakers. And Trent Horn is somebody I haven't heard in person, but he has a way of logically, it's pretty much, I mean, he's nice about it, but it's pretty much a beatdown when, if you're trying to oppose his point of view, which is the Catholic Church's point of view, he has a nice, gentle way of just logically letting people know, what the facts are and what people need to do about certain situations. And so both of them, Tim Staples and Trent Horn, will be available on that men's conference from February 20th from 8 to 4 p.m. And, go to santexcatholic.com to find out more information. I believe Bishop Joe will be there, and they're offering a lunch there there's tickets available at the door, but they're cheaper online. The early bird special has passed, but they had close to 1,000 men there last year,
Yes.
and we're looking to do another live broadcast from there, planning on it at the beginning of the conference and seeing where it goes.
Yes, that's a very good program. I've been several times. I don't think I'm going to be able to go this year because of circumstances. However, I would recommend it to men, and it'd be a good time to go and get a group of guys together and spend the day together. Mm-hmm. There are men that take their 16, 17, 18-year-old sons with them. It's really good for building that bond and helping the young man to realize what it means to be a man.
Neat. Good stuff. Got anything else, Gene?
I've got a couple other things. Let's see. We got a couple of minutes here to talk. Financial Peace University is starting up again on February 2nd from 6:30 to 8 p.m. This is the 5th class of Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. It's at St. Joseph's Church as well. There's a videotape teaching and discussions and interactive group. Financial Peace University presents biblical steps that are practical to get to where you are financially, where you'd like to be. Classes meet about 1.5 hours a week for 9 weeks, and childcare is available. Go to daveramsey.com and click Find a Class to register. For questions, call Kathy Spillers, or contact Kathy Spillers, and the email address is brazosvalleyfpu@gmail.com. We here at the radio station did a 33 days of prayer for total consecration to Jesus through Mary. Mm-hmm. The diocese is doing that beginning February 20th. Each day of prayer represents 1 year in the life of Christ. Prayers are done privately in your own homes using consecration preparation book. Visit www.texas2jesusthroughmary.org by January 31st and receive a free preparation prayer book by St. Louis de Montfort by mail. For more information. One other thing, it's another activity in Austin, is Texas Right to Life March is on January 23rd. Let you check the bulletin for more information on that. We're about time to go to a break, and in just a few minutes, as soon as the break is over, we will have Dr. Mary Kelly here with us, and we'll be talking about how to organize your life.
All right. See you soon on Red Sea Roundup.
Good morning. Welcome back to Red Sea Roundup. And our guest is here with us, Dr. Mary Kelly. And she's going to talk about, in a case of emergency, break glass and organize your life. Hello, Mary.
Hey, good morning.
How are you doing today?
I'm thrilled. I'm delighted to be here. As you know, I grew up in Texas, and I'm sort of missing that Texas weather right about now. I'm in Colorado under about 6 inches of snow.
Well, I'm glad it's you and not me. Mary, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started. You said you're born in Texas and raised in Texas.
I was raised in Texas, yes, and I went to Ursuline Academy, where a lot of my friends went to Texas A&M, of course, and we always cheer for the Aggies. And I have a bathroom that's decorated in burgundy and white, so I feel a kinship with you. And after I went to Ursuline, I went to the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, so shout out to all of the military folks down there. And then I was very fortunate to have a 21-year commissioned service time with the Navy. And I was very fortunate to be able to live outside the United States for most of that, about 17 years of that, mostly in Asia.
Wow. That sounds interesting. And in the process of all that, you went on from the Naval Academy, got a master's and a PhD, and tell us a little bit about that and how that happened.
Well, thanks for asking about that. As many people are not always sure, the military really promotes extended education, and I was able to go to school at night and on weekends. They encourage it. Nowadays, they sort of help pay for some of it too. They didn't way back then. But I've got a couple master's degrees and in history and another one in economics, and then I've got a PhD in economics, and then I'm ABD and another PhD in political science, which mostly nobody cares about. Huh?
Well, I think we could use that this year when we're doing our election process, the political science. Some really good.
Yes.
Now, Mary, when you got into this is kind of an interesting thing because what we're going to be talking about really isn't economics. It's more, and I was thinking about this over the weekend, that it's more carrying out what James says about that pure, unspoilt religion is the care of widows and orphans. And what we're talking about is doing things to care for them before we're gone.
That's exactly correct. And many family people, you get married, you're young, and you've got the whole world ahead of you. You're late 20s, early 30s. You've maybe got a couple kids, and oh gosh, you're so busy, and you think you're invincible. I know in my 20s I thought I was invincible. I'm sure you did too. And all of a sudden in the military we realize that nobody is immune to tragedy, and the military perhaps tries to prepare a little bit more than other people because being injured or dying is a little bit more of a reality in that profession. So this interest, this concern that maybe people are not as well prepared as they should be in case something happens. And I say in case, but it's really a when. And all of us know that we're not getting out of this alive. And the idea is that where we're going is a better place. However, for the people who are left here, if something happens to us or when something happens to us, is our responsibility now.
Mm-hmm. And it isn't just the military. We had some friends that he was probably somewhere around 30 and had 2 or 3 small children at the time. And he went out hunting, was killed in a hunting accident. And, so you never know, or all it takes is going out to dinner and having a drunk driver hit you head on. So you really never know when it's going to happen.
That is exactly right. We don't get to know when, so we have to make sure that we are prepared now. And as I tell people, I say, I know you're 33 years old and you're a wonderful family man, and you're trying to get your kids to Little League and football practice and soccer and piano, and your wife is working and she's really busy too. But that's the time to think about what happens next. You don't want to be thinking about, oh gosh, what happens to my house, my business, my kids, if for some reason you are now lying in a hospital bed with a lot of tubes going in and out of your body and in terrible pain and on a lot of painkillers. That's not the time that you want to be thinking about what happens next and how to take care of your family.
Well, Mary, you got involved in this through a personal experience, and then you began to share that with other people. Would you care to recount a little bit about how the whole process of trying to prepare for end of life and for those that remain after you, how did that happen in your life?
Well, as I said, we all think that we're invincible in our 20s and 30s, and I certainly was no different, and neither was my husband. I was very fortunate to be married to a Marine, and he had seen some time in Vietnam and come back and all good. And then right before I was getting ready to retire out of the Navy, he called me and said, I've got back pain. And his back pain turned out was a fairly fast-moving form of multiple myeloma cancer.
Mm.
And he wound up being in the ICU very quickly, and from there he passed away. So from diagnosis until the time he passed was only about 55 days. And it was a very tough time for him because multiple myeloma eats away at the bones of your body. So while he was in the ICU, he was in pain. And I felt that my job was to make sure that he did not suffer as much as possible. And I was, again, fortunate that he and I had talked about what we want to have happen next. So I thought we'd be better prepared than most because we talked about it. We had a will, we had wills, we had powers of attorney, we had, certain DNRs in case of certain situations, do not resuscitate. So we had that in place, but I have to tell you, that's a good start, but it's not enough. And right now, only about half of Americans have a will. And a will just lets the state know that you've thought about what has to happen and that you've made some provisions and decisions. But over half of Americans, 51%, don't have a will at all. And of the people who do have a will, many of those people haven't updated it in 10 or 15 or 30 years. If you made the will when your child was a toddler and your child now has toddlers of their own, it's probably time to update your will.
Yes, it is. And one of the things that I remember that someone stressed to me when ours were young was a portion of the will needs to specify in the event that both of you are die, who is going to take care of the children?
Absolutely. Because otherwise, of course, the state is going to make that decision based on legal precedent of that state. And different states have different issues based on who gets the kids, but it generally goes to a relative. But what if your relatives, we all just had the holidays. Some of our relatives are a little crazy. We all know that. We love the crazy, but they may not be our first choice for our children.
Well, I understand what you're talking about. And so, but going back to when your husband died, if I remember your story correctly, there was quite a bit of stress involved, not only because of your retirement coming up and just a number of other things that led you to put this system together for people.
Correct. So as I was sitting in the hospital room, I was making a list. I'm a consummate note taker, and I always have a piece of paper and a pen. And I was thinking, okay, what if? If this happens, what do I need to think about? What do I do about the house? What do I do about making sure that things get paid? I didn't know anything about death certificates. I didn't know that you need, for example, about 25 original death certificates, because once you go back to try to get more later, it's extremely costly and it takes a long time. And who would think that, for example, your phone company, in order to cancel his phone, needed an original death certificate?
I didn't know that.
No, it's crazy. Who would think that in order to cancel your Netflix account, you need an original death certificate? You can't just call up and say, oh, by the way, we don't need this service anymore. Things that people just don't think about. One of the big things people don't think about, for example, deals with insurance. Funny story, in my case, my husband's life insurance went to a woman he dated when he went to Vietnam because he never updated it. And it wasn't that, we were married for 15 years, and it was just a sort of a sad thing that you get this note from the life insurance company that says, "Dear Miss So-and-so, we are so sorry about your loss, and oh, by the way." And then all of a sudden, you revert from being the spouse to now the executor, and now you have to handle that. And now I had to spend about 2 years of my life, hire a private investigator to find this person, get court documents to make sure that she got paid.
Wow.
Now, so it's something that when I have a live audience and I talk about this, I make it into a very long, and it's a pretty funny story, because you have to laugh. You have to just say, okay. And this is why I need to tell people that they need to update their beneficiaries. And it's not just in life insurance, but I want to stay on that for just a second. For example, say you take a job and you're working at, say, Target or Walmart. and you've got a life insurance policy when you sign up with them. Well, 20 years later, that life insurance policy has gone from one company to the next company to the next company because, they outsource that, and it changes every couple of years in all likelihood. So maybe you started with, Progressive or United, and now it's with somebody else. So when somebody passes, you call up you go through the file, you grab that paperwork that they first signed when they took the job, you call up that life insurance company, and you give them a number, and they say, I'm sorry, we don't have any record of that. So then you go, oh, okay, I guess maybe they didn't pay it anymore. And you hang up the phone and you stop because that person, that worker, never updated that information in a file. And that's one of the things that I tell people, please keep those types of things updated. Which life insurance company, where your, term, long-term disability, short-term disability, keep that information updated and in your house so that somebody can come in and find it easily because you've paid for this. You've paid for this maybe 20, 30 years. And it's a shame that you think you tried to take care of your family, and then because you didn't update one tiny piece of paper, your family doesn't get what they deserve.
Okay. Now, you have a pretty elaborate structure of things that you recommend that people do. I know when we learned about you, we ordered your materials, and it took us, I don't know, a couple of weeks or more to assemble all the things that were there, and then also to actually get some things done that we hadn't really thought about. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So what happened is after my husband died, I went back to my workplace and my friends, and I said, and some of my best friends said, well, we've asked you to be our executor in case something happens to us and make sure our kids go to the right relatives and all that. And I said, you know what? I will do that for you, but you have to make it easy on me. And this is what I need you to do so that I know what you want. And Gene, that's where it started. So I sat down with all the notes that I'd made in the hospital, and I put it together in a way that my friends, and I really did this for about 5 of my very best friends, so that my friends could put this all together in a binder so that I would know what to do if and when that time came. And so when I gave it to them in a binder, and forms worked. And when we were going through this, I said, okay, we're all going to have a dinner party, and we're all going to sit here and work through these forms, and we're going to laugh and have fun and drink wine and just have a good time and go through these forms. And where we don't have the information ready, or we want to think about it, we're going to use different colors. This is how I do it. I use different color sticky notes. I say, okay, yellow means I've got to find that paperwork somewhere. Red means it's something that we need to discuss, or I need to think about it. So, for example, my do not resuscitate forms is after a certain point, do I want a DNR? Or I'm not sure which relatives I want my kids to go to. We need to discuss that. But the reds mean it's a discussion point and we have to make a decision. The yellows mean it's time to find the paperwork. So the idea, Gene, was to put this together in a way that it's designed to be as simple as possible and as comprehensive as possible for most people. It's not going to cover every single thing for every single person, but it's a pretty darn good start.
Yes, and ours didn't fit in the binder, so we have it in a little carry box, that a little carry file cabinet. So
so smart.
So it's there. And it's everybody.
So smart.
We know where it is, and our children know where it is, and so
And that's the big key, Gene. Is many times people have all this paperwork somewhere, but nobody knows where it is. So all of a sudden, people say, "Well, okay, I was in an accident in Salt Lake City, but I live in Oklahoma, and all this paperwork. So now I need somebody to go to my house, find a key, get inside, go get what I need, and then somehow get this information to me." And this is where a letter of instruction can be very helpful. And a letter of instruction is just something that you can write out. You can type it out. You can send it in an email. It does not require any legal interaction or anything like that. And it's just to your kids or to your friends or whoever's going to do this, dear Bob, this is what's going on. Here's what I need you to do. This is where the spare house key is. This is what the cat needs to get fed. My kids need to be picked up at this school. Here's the instructions. Here's all the letters, so that people know where things are, so that they can take action on your behalf. We so often don't realize how important we are to other people and what other people rely on us to do and to know. So we have to put that down in a place that if we're somehow incapacitated, lying in a hospital bed, and we can't move, what information and tools people need right away so that they can act on our behalf.
Well, I think one of the things that seemed most important to us was to designate the person who can act for us financially and who can make medical decisions for us in the event that we are incapacitated. In your example of Oklahoma City and Salt Lake City, somebody needs to be able to make those decisions. And I think on your CD you talked about somebody wanting their 3 sisters or daughters or somebody to do that.
Oh,
and you said they couldn't even agree on where to go to lunch.
That's exactly right. And these are all smart, educated women, sisters, and their personalities could not be more different. And when it comes time to their mom, they just cannot agree on things. So the mom said, well, I'll just put all 3 of you in charge of everything. And that is the worst possible decision, because now you've got 2 out of 3 agreeing or disagreeing, and now you've got fights. No. So when I sat down with her, I said, I really need you to pick one daughter who's going to make the medical decisions. Now, it doesn't mean she doesn't get input from the others, but it means it's her who makes the decision. And it doesn't have to be a relative, and that's one of the things I talk about is parents frequently say, well, my kids will do this. And the other thing parents say is, oh, my kids know. We'll get to that. But having one single person, one single point of contact for, say, the financial part or the legal issues and the medical parts, those two, in my mind, have to be one person, very clear. And then you have a secondary in case that first person is suddenly not available as well.
Well, and it's really better to hurt the feelings now than to get locked in something where no decision can be made.
Well, then the problem is you then, let's say you pass away and your 3 kids are now fighting over what to do. You have virtually torn the family apart by not deciding now. And so you think, well, oh gosh, is my eldest child going to be hurt that they're not going to be the medical decision maker or whoever? And my suggestion is, if you've got a close family, get it out in the open. Have this conversation. I've done this program, by the way, in front of my parents. And in the state of Texas, if you don't have a will, for example, and you're single, your assets go back to your parents. And in that program, I kind of give a wave to my parents. I go, hey, Mom and Dad, just wanted to let you know I got a will. You're getting nothing, huh? And everybody laughed. But the idea is it's something that we should be able to openly discuss. So in my family, there's 4 of us, siblings. And I have an older brother, and he is the first one to say that he is very glad that my parents have named me the executor. He says, it's just not something he knows anything about. He is not good at it. He doesn't want any part of it, and he is really fine with that. And all my siblings understand that this is it's a huge responsibility, but it's a couple years out of your life if things aren't put together well. And so when I first put this together, I asked my father, who is extremely well organized, I asked him to take a look at it, and he said, I've got everything put together. I said, okay, Dad. So you got to remember my dad's a few years older than me. And I said, so Dad, do me a favor. I said, look at it and tell me what I've missed. And that got his attention because now he's looking for stuff that I've missed. And he went through it and he said, you know what, there's things that we didn't have put together. And this is after he'd worked with a lawyer and a financial planner and an organizer. And there are still things that he just didn't think about. People don't think about the fact that your credit cards frequently have a rider on there that say if something happens to you, that you're insured for $1,000. Do you have mortgage insurance? Is your home automatically paid off? It's not automatic. You have to do something about it. Is your home paid off in the case, do you have mortgage insurance in case something happens to you or you pass away, and now your house is paid off so your family can stay there? Do you have that? But if people don't know that, then all of a sudden they continue to pay a mortgage for another 20 years that they didn't need to pay, or they are missing out on benefits that you've paid for that they just don't know they exist, so they don't think to ask for them. And that's one of those things I tell people, just sit down, have the conversation, and let people know what you want. And on the idea of knowing what you want, I talk to my senior friends, and they say, well, my kids know. And I tell them, I go, you know what? Your kids have no idea what you want. And there's a sad story where I have a friend of mine who buried his mom in Arizona because she'd come down to live the last 15 years down in Arizona to be by him. And 6 months after he buried her in Arizona, he found a burial plot in Indiana where she grew up. And then he calls me and he says, Mary, what do I do? And I said, I know this is one of those situations that, did you ever talk to her about this? And he said, no. Did she ever mention it? He said, no. I said, well, it's going to cost between $30,000 and $40,000 to move your mom back to Indiana. And he's a mechanic. And I said, I really advise you to just chalk it up and say, Mom, I did the best I could, and sell that plot or use it for you later or whatever. But He said, I feel so guilty. And this is what the parents don't understand, is that your kids probably want to do exactly what you want them to do, but if you don't tell them, they don't know.
So,
and it's a one-way guilt trip for the rest of their life.
So what I hear you saying is that for parents, if you really love your children, you need to tell them what it is that you want so they don't have to carry this guilt around later on or consternation that they're not doing what you want.
That's exactly right. And especially as we get maybe closer to that place where, this becomes more of a likelihood, we tend to feel a little bit of fear. And if you've got control, if you can sit down and say, you know what, I'm taking control of what happens. If I get sick, this is what I want. When I die, this is what I want to have happen to my dog, my cat, my house. And then you've got control, and now you're not afraid. And that's what I think is really important as well.
Marion's mother took it one step further when she had moved to Dallas to be closer to her daughters and had a place at Tremont, which I'm sure you know since you know Dallas.
Oh, yeah, right up the hill.
Yeah. So what she did is she talked with the children and the grandchildren and made some decisions. And she took, I don't remember what it was, address labels or pieces of paper and Scotch tape and put people's names on the bottom of things that she thought people would want to have so that that when she died, people would just look underneath or on the back and find out who it went to.
It's perfect. And you can make a party out of it. You can just say, hey, just in case, this, that, whatever. And people think we have to do that when we're older. But that's not really the case. Families need to be thinking about this now. And they need to be thinking about, not necessarily giving away their stuff now, but they need to be thinking about what documents do I need. We had a situation out here where a lovely family was coming back out of the mountains and a boulder came down and crushed the car. So you're 30, you're in your 30s and you're invincible, and all of a sudden you're not here. So what happens next? And those are the families that I really worry about, because they say, well, I've got time to do it, and we just don't know. And that's the big thing. We just never know. We don't know what the major plan is. We don't know what the big picture is. And they put it off. And the whole point of the program that I put together, and you were kind to reference that, is try to make it as comprehensive and simple, but also as painless as possible. Just work on it for 20 minutes for a week, 20 minutes for a week, and think about these things that are really important, and then get it done now, and then just update it as you need to. And I'm not sure, I think the program you've got is a few years older, and now I
think it's 2011.
Yes. So I came out with a more comprehensive 144-page one that talks about, that's a little bit better organized in my opinion, and it also has things in there such as child care information, what my child needs, if there's any special, if your child has certain allergies to food or something like that, you need the caregiver, whoever's going to step in, to know that. Senior care information, a lot of my friends have their parents living with them, and if something happens to them, who knows that mom can't eat solid food after 4 o'clock, or she needs to watch Jeopardy every night at 6:30. Pet care information, cat care, dog care, all those things, an emergency phone list. These are all things that people need to update all the time. So they are a free download from my site, and anybody can just go in there and get these, as well as the checklist, to try to make sure that they've got as much of this taken care of as possible.
Mary, this might be a good time for you to give how to get this information that you have collected, and not to say that they need to have yours, but it gives a good way to figure out what needs to happen. Now, where would they go to find that?
So I've got these resources on my site called productiveleaders.com, and it's under products or store. And that's my Productive Leaders is my big speaking site, my big business site. And I also have it under Organize-U, Y-O-U, and that might be easier to remember.
Organize-U.com, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And
there's,
Mary, one of the things that occurs to me too is that sometimes Catholic people are thinking more about, well, I need to get myself ready so that when I die, I can go to heaven. And one of the things that they don't realize that although we are charged with being good stewards of the things that God has given us. And this is one of the ways that you can be a good steward of what God has given you and make sure that it gets to where it needs to be, rather than to spend excessive amounts of money after death to make sure it gets where it needs to go.
Oh, absolutely. I love my lawyer friends, but I don't necessarily want to see families paying them an extra $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 after somebody has passed because legal things weren't squared away. And the other part of that is there's no guarantee that what's going to happen in that legal process is what you wanted to have happen. And one of the things I also tell my audiences is, look, there's no law that says you have to leave stuff to your kids. And if your kids are not behaving nicely, or you want to decide that you want to leave, 30% of your estate to the church, or, a mission in Honduras, or an orphanage in Cambodia, there's no law that says you can't, that you have to leave it to your kids. And you need to make these decisions now. Absolutely. The other thing is that when you leave a mess behind, you're kind of taking away 2 or 3 years of somebody else's life, because that's what it takes. And even the most well-organized, most helpful, and in my case, I got medical bills for 18 months afterwards.
You had a story about a medical. You had a story about a medical bill that I thought was hilarious, but it echoed something that had happened to us, but not after somebody died. I have a couple funny stories. I'm not exactly sure which one you heard. I think it's the one about 18 months after your husband had died, you got a bill.
Oh, yes. So this is kind of funny. So the hospital sends this bill, and what I did is every time I got a bill, I would call the hospital and say, hey, I got this bill, and it goes through, insurance for this, that, whatever, because people get these bills, and they think, oh, my gosh, I have to pay that. But they don't realize necessarily that it goes through these insurance processes, and you're getting the first draft, as it were, of the bill. And then after insurance works through it, then you get the bill after everybody's worked through it. But these initial bills can be very shocking to some people, and that's one thing I want to make sure I like to make sure my audiences know is don't pay the bills when you get them, because it's probably not the real bill to you when it's coming from the hospital or a doctor. Anyway, so I get one, and I called the hospital, and I said, I have been really diligent about making sure you guys get paid for everything, and I wanted to double check on this one. They go, the poor little person, making probably $10 an hour. It's like, yes, ma'am, you have to pay this bill in full, make sure it's processed within 10 days, or, I go, okay, great, I get that. And I said, but are you absolutely sure that this happened? And she says, yes, ma'am. I said, are you sure this is my husband's bill? And she said, yes, ma'am. I said, well, the only issue with that is the procedure that you're talking about happened about 14 months after he died in your hospital. There was dead silence on the end of the phone. And I said, and I was married to the man, and I'm pretty sure he didn't need a hysterectomy. So then she's like, oh, no. And I said, so how can I help you get rid of this bill under my name? I said, because, I understand how medical billing works, but this is just not one I'm willing to get excited about. She's like, oh, I'm so sorry. So I said, I know that. I said, do you need a death certificate? And she goes, I really do. And she, she works in medical billing, but they don't have access to records. So I said, I can fax that to you right now. And that made things easier. But you have to kind of stay on top of it. The problem is, I think for most people, is that every time they get a bill, it conjures up all of the emotions of losing that person. Mm-hmm. And many people, when they get that, they are paralyzed into inactivity. And then they look at these bills, and then the pile of bills just get higher and higher and higher. They don't know what to do with them. They don't know how to process them. And then the stress just increases. And in many cases, Gene, and I know you've heard this, that there's so many instances where spouses die very quickly after one passes. It's
yes.
enormous. So and I think it's a combination of the inordinate grief and sadness, but it's also the weight of having to deal with the process.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And what the things you're recounting aren't that atypical. I mean,
No, I think I had a very typical situation in terms of that.
We've got about 5 minutes left. I'd like you to address 35-year-old couple, 3 children, and not really understanding what they need to do, first of all, mm-hmm. at that age. And mm-hmm. what are the preliminary steps that you think they need to take? I mean, you have I think 8 of them that you mentioned on your the CD that I have, but
mm-hmm.
but what do they need to do to protect themselves and to protect their children?
So first off, they need to do a letter of instruction, which is free. Anybody can do it. I've got, templates that are available, and it's exactly what I said. In case something happens, this is where this needs to go. This is where the kids are, and they can do the child care forms. Huge. So letter of instruction, child care forms. If they've got pets, and that's something that they can do quick, fast, and easy. Letter of instruction, child care form, and then the third is a will. If you've got minor children, you absolutely must have a will, because otherwise, like I said, the state is going to decide where your kids go, and that is not necessarily where you want that to happen. And now, all of a sudden, if somebody wants to challenge that, you've got a court case. And that is the last thing people need, and it's the last thing your kids need when they're trying to figure out what their life is going to be like without you. So those are the top three things for a young family.
Okay, and the will is what, about $200-$300 now typically, or is it more than that? I don't have any idea. It's been
a will right now is about $400.
About $400.
And I know, and if I might, I know that there's all these advertisements for cheap and easy wills and things like that. That will work if there are no complications. So if you've got a will that you made with an online program, and you know that not one person on the planet is ever going to challenge your will, then that might work. But I wouldn't bank on it. I think it's worth the $400 to get a qualified lawyer to draft up the will. Most lawyers, when you do the will throw in the healthcare directives for nothing, powers of attorney, things like that, and I really think it's worth the $400, even if your budget is not great. There are many free places, clinics, legal aid that will do wills for you, and I think it's really, really important to get a lawyer to do that, because having a bad will is almost worse than having no will at all.
Yes, and I think one of the things that surprised me when we had our will done was the way that you need to designate what happens when a child dies, and how things are distributed to their children, or whatever happens like that. It was just something that never occurred to me.
Right. Sometimes people ask about, what most parents think. Well, of course, I'm going to die before my children, and then what happens when they don't? What happens when your 22-year-old child has a horrible accident, which is not anything anybody ever wants to think about, and my heart absolutely breaks for anybody who's ever lost a child. I think it's horrendous.
Well, what about the person that's retirement age, say somewhere between 65 and 95? I mean, and 95 isn't too old to do this either, and maybe it's more urgent for somebody who's 95 than someone who's 65, but it's important for both.
Yes, absolutely. Because, you've worked hard your whole life, and you want to make sure that the things that you've worked so hard for are protected. And, let's say your kids are grown, and they don't need any of your assets or anything like that, and you decide, you know what, this is a real good time in my life where I want to put clean wells in Africa. I want to, sponsor children for, in different areas of the country. I want to give scholarships. It's a great time to think about leaving a great legacy.
Mm-hmm. Yes. We've got about 1 minute and 10 seconds. So how would you wrap up what we've talked about? Let's talk about, again, how to get a hold of you at organize-u.com or productiveleaders.com.
Or productiveleaders.com. The productiveleaders.com has a products page, which I think is a little bit better shape, and it shows there's a full page, the 144-page manual. There's a short one, which is the 36-page, which I think is one you have. There is a CD that I made, again, for my friends' parents so that they could think about things to walk through that. For organizations that want to show this as a program and get people to think about it, like a church group or a Bible study or something like that, I do have the DVD. And they can just get contact me at that. I'm also at mary@productiveleaders.com. And if you do have a West Point listener out there, I love my West Point friends, my Army friends as well as my Navy friends. And I will, if you've got somebody who calls in and says they're an Academy grad or a Corps of Cadet grad, and the first 3 people who call you, I will cheerfully send them a free manual. Okay.
And Mary, we're out of time. I thank you so much for being here with us today. And you've got things to do. I know you're going to be busy over at the Air Force Academy this afternoon, and I really appreciate your taking time out of your day to do this. And
Gene, it's totally my pleasure. Thank you so much for addressing this important topic.
Okay, thank you, Mary. And for those of you who are listening to us on a regular basis, you know that what we ask you to do is, when choosing between the values of the world and the values of heaven, always round up.